The Black Jesus story was probably one of the most shocking things I ever heard. It came from my insider, Jacob, I call him that in the book, who actually was working for the Rothschilds and still does, and also is a whistleblower who doesn't really do what they want but continues to work for them because he feels like there's some very serious extraterrestrial threats to Earth and that what they're doing is very necessary to protect us. So the story goes that in the 1960s there was a black man in Africa who came in with abilities complementary to those of Jesus. And he was performing miracles. He was starting to get people to listen to what he had to say. And the cabal tried to kill him, and, they could shoot him in the head, and his skull would just regenerate, and the flesh would grow back, and he was fine. And, so the crazy story that I heard, which, and remember, I was told at the time that if I disclosed this, that I would be killed, and I ended up putting it in the book anyway. But the story was that this guy, they finally said, okay, we're going to bring you to the United Nations and share your message with the world. Let's get you on this flight. They bring him on this flight, and instead of bringing him to the United Nations, they shot him repeatedly, and then actually had some kind of meat grinder device, and basically like a bandsaw, I guess, and sawed up his body into a whole bunch of pieces, put him in these very like radioactive shielded containers, and then had all these fighter jets dock with the plane and fly his body parts to all corners of the world, where then these containers turned them into ash. And they thought that maybe this would defeat him, like that his body somehow, the tissue was necessary. So if they destroyed all the tissue in all these places across the world, maybe they could defeat him. Well, he then regenerated in their offices and was fully fine, fully intact. But the sad part is that he said, you guys so badly do not want me to be here that I am not going to be able to do any more. You're going to get what you want, but bear in mind that in the future, many others like me will be coming, and when they do, you will not be able to stop us.
Wow. Well,
that is all I know.
right.
Unfortunately, there's nothing more to the story than that. I don't,
incredible.
But it is an incredible story.
Incredible. Let's go to Wildcard. Thomas, right here in California. Thomas, you're up next on Coast.
Jimmy, thank you for taking my call. And David, it's always a pleasure to hear your interviews. And I look forward to obtaining your latest book on the Ascension. David, my question is about direct contact with extraterrestrials. There have to be benevolent, trustworthy extraterrestrials out there. And how can the average man, the average woman of the coast-to-coast universe have direct contact with benevolent, trustworthy extraterrestrials without having to go through intermediaries like the Alliance or the Cabal or the military-industrial complex or national intelligence agencies?
Got it.
Excellent question, Thomas.
So
David?
It's actually ironic that he asked this question because that is the big question that the reader of Ascension Mysteries is left with. And I am writing another book right now called Awakening in the Dream, Contact with the Divine, that is exactly that. It's exactly what his question is. So the short and sweet answer is that when you're dealing with the benevolent folks in the universe, they found that if they were to appear in front of people in person too quickly, that people would be worshipped by others as some kind of guru or savior figure, and that the people themselves would have ego problems that would develop where they would feel entitled or special or otherwise different.
Right.
So what usually happens in the case of ET contact, what I'm going to outline in my new book, you will generally start having these experiences in dreams. And so I would highly, highly condition people to think that a dream might not just be a dream. One of the things I've heard from Corey Goode is that people are having ET contacts, and then the dream will be partially what actually happened and partially a screen memory. It will be slightly distorted, or sometimes greatly distorted. So, but in the greater sense, I would say that we all have a higher self, and the higher self tries to communicate to us through mystery, and the mystery usually will start with things that most people would call coincidence and I would call synchronicity. So that's why I wrote a whole book called The Synchronicity Key, where I scientifically proved the existence of synchronicity as a bona fide fact. So you'll start to get these things happening that really defy common sense and logic, and that's your clue that invites you into the deeper mysteries. If you want to have the more profound types of spiritual experiences in direct contact with your higher self, I think dream work is a very highly useful discipline, but ultimately you're going to need to meditate. These beings will not be able to reach you, and they do start telepathically. They'll not be able to reach you telepathically if you don't get control over the monkey mind that's always chattering with all kinds of self-defeating and judgmental thoughts about others. And so when you can start to control that thought and get yourself into a nice, clear, coherent consciousness, that's where the criteria for contact will begin. And as we move forward through the changes that I'm now describing, people are going to start to have very dramatic experiences of contact that will appear to be like ghosts or entities in the room. And when that happens, we know that when that starts happening on a mass level, we know that we're very close to this solar event that I've talked about in the Ascension Mysteries book. That is a very, very interesting subject where the sun apparently is going to give off a big flash of energy, and after it does, what it means to be human will have fundamentally changed in a very dramatic way, almost instantaneously.
Yeah, we had a solar event and a flyby of a meteor yesterday. Both
that
in
is
the
true.
Yeah,
that
pretty interesting. Let's go to Wild Card. Joe, way out east in the Bronx, New York. Joe, you're up next.
Hey, Jimmy, how's it going?
It's going good, Joe. Say hi to David.
Hey, David. How are you, David?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you. I wanted to ask you, now, concerning the reptilians, is it their quest or their mission to try to gain control of major powers like the U.S. and Russia?
Yep. Do you want me to enunciate further on that, or do you have more to the question? Okay. All right, so what are the reptilians? There's been a lot of confusion around this. The reptilians are basically racists, and it's a group of beings that went around the galaxy seeing all these different human populations, and they found that there were certain... So basically, just as a starter point here, the biosphere that we see on Earth, the biome that we have, meaning plants, insects, marine life, animal life, birds, etc., mammals, this is very, very common on any inhabited Earth-like planet, and most of the Earth-like planets are inhabited. Life is very, very prolific. NASA has already publicly stated there's 40 billion with a B, 40 billion watery Earth-like planets just in our galaxy. That is official. It's in the Ascension Mysteries book. So, there are human populations on these planets, and this is because evolution ultimately is written into the laws of quantum physics. We're used to thinking of quantum physics as this very abstract stuff that only mathematicians can understand, when in fact it is actually a biological matrix that makes DNA and proteins and cells and life. So the types of organisms that we see in the animal kingdom here on Earth, there's all different ways that one of those types can become a human-looking being, and it depends on the climate and the conditions of that planet, and to some degree the actual consciousness of the planet and the sun as to which of these types of beings become sentient. So you could and do have planets that are entirely oceanic, where they don't have any continental mass above the surface of the oceans. And then you're going to have an aquatic species, and it could be any of a variety of types like we see in our oceans, that become humanoid and sentient, and they will have limbs and heads with eyes, nose, mouth, ears, just like we have, or more or less similar. Then on planets where they do have land, you might have bird-like beings. You might have beings that look like they're kind of cat-like human or a dog-like human. And in some cases, you do have reptilians. It's not very common. So the reptilians, for whatever reason, maybe because of the heritage of the reptilian brain, they have tended to be more aggressive species. And so a very dominant, very intelligent, very reptilian group has found other natural reptilian stocks in our galaxy. They invaded these planets. They blended their DNA with the native population. So these populations now are hybrids. And they formed this confederation. They have been making war on non-reptilian species all over the galaxy, and they've been largely defeated and got beaten back into our little corner here. So they have an outpost in the constellation Orion, and they have an outpost here in our solar system, and those are their two main centers of operation.
Hey, Joe, I want to thank you for the phone call. We're going to head towards a break right here. Thank you so much. And, David, what do you say? Okay, I have two questions before the break. Let's get these in from me.
Okay.
A, what do you say to the people that insist that you are a disinfo agent, number one? And number two, what about your DNA? Two simple answers. Have you had your DNA checked? So let's get those in. You've got 2 minutes.
It's pretty odd. Why did I get a 179 when I took the IQ test? Why did they tell me I scored too high that they couldn't actually even tell me what my IQ was because it was off the chart? Why do I see things that other people don't see? And for me, it's like obvious and easy. And if I talk too fast, then people don't have any idea what I'm talking about. Why did it take me many years to learn how to dumb myself down enough that people could understand me? I don't know. I do think there's probably some kind of extraterrestrial aspect to my personality or my soul or whatever that is different from most people.
You look E.T.-ish.
I do kind of have an elongated skull.
Yeah, you got something going on. Okay.
Yeah. And then as far as disinformation, when you're looking at the people who are doing this on behalf of the cabal,
right,
they're trying to promote a Luciferian belief system because that's the cabal's religion. I've been exposing it for many years.
Interesting.
And what that belief system entails is the exact opposite of what I keep telling people over and over again. Their belief is like Darwinian, the most effective killers are the most evolved. They're very hierarchical. They want to always put the power back in the hands of the cabal. They want to say might makes right. They want to encourage moral laxity. They want to encourage corrupt behavior, sexual looseness. And I have been just the opposite. I have been encouraging people to embrace the core of all the world's great spiritual teachings, which focuses on forgiveness, compassion, and helping other people.
Well, let's take a break right here, David.